Desde tu perspectiva, ¿cómo ha cambiado la llegada de Messi a la forma en que los clubes se comunican y comercializan a sus equipos?
Well, I think obviously with Messi's arrival, it put a lot of attention on our league that was not there previously. And in the soccer world, we embrace all coverage of soccer as a way to raise the sports profile and credibility to American fans. So with Messi's arrival, it really gave a tremendous boost of credibility to our league. And so we encourage all of our media to talk about him, what he means for the league, what he means for all clubs, kind of that the message being the rising tide lifts all ships. However, we've been very careful in all of our messaging and our promotions, especially around the two times that he came to play here in Foxborough, that it's not only about one player necessarily, especially with how we market it to fans, because we want anyone who's going to come to the stadium to see him and see that spectacle of one of, if not the best players of all time. We embrace that, but our real focus is how do we make it an authentic New England Revolution experience and try to encourage them to come back to Revolution matches. Because we believe that if somebody comes and witnesses an MLS game, statistically, they're much more likely to then follow the team. I think where other sports are perhaps a watch first, attend second. In America, I think with soccer, it is very much the opposite. You go to a match first, you feel the match day experience, and then you're more likely to watch the games and follow the team. So we view it as a great opportunity to welcome thousands of new people into the tent. And then our customer service team, our ticket sales team, everyone across the board, our content team, we're trying to put the face of the Revolution out there so that they have something they can come back to. I think soccer is kind of unique in that fans are able to support more than one club, more than one player, more than one country. It's just natural for a soccer fan to maybe support a club in Brazil, love Kylian Mbappe, and also support Real Madrid, right? It could be, they have capacity to cheer for a lot of people. So we're okay with fans supporting any club they love around the world. They can have a favorite Premier League or La Liga team. We just want them to also appreciate that there's a great club and product right here in their own backyard to support as well. So, I think I'll let you answer more questions. I can go on forever. I'll save the rest, I think. Yeah.
En términos de reclutamiento o marca, ¿los jugadores argentinos se han vuelto más atractivos para los clubes de la MLS?
So I think that, probably the real experts in that are my sporting director, but from my perspective, I think what I've learned is that it just makes the recruitment of those players much easier. It doesn't mean necessarily that we are now going after Argentinian players more than before. I think we always have been. Certainly under our current sporting regime, our sporting director, Kurt Onalfo, has been very active in recruiting out of Brazil, Colombia, Argentina. We have a great scouting network in South America. So our club has always been very active in those regions. I think if anything, it makes it a much easier sales pitch to a young player like Luca Langoni, who was with Boca Juniors. For him to now come to MLS, it takes much less convincing than it might once have, because he has the opportunity to play alongside and against Lionel Messi. But that's not to say it was a tough sales pitch before, because I think where MLS is right now, and the New England Revolution in particular, we kind of have a brand of being a stepping stone for young players to prove themselves here in MLS and then go on to bigger leagues abroad. We've had several young players that we've sold to the Premier League or to the Netherlands or beyond. So I think for a player like Luca Langoni, who is 21 years old at a huge club in Argentina, he came to us because he knew that this was a way for him to be seen and develop and then go perhaps to a bigger club. Now, I think the fact that he could play against Messi makes it a much easier decision. So I don't think that's the one sole reason, but it certainly is a factor. I mean, and it's not just Argentina, it's players from all around the world. Like, if it's between one club or another, that is another feather in our cap to say, well, if it's good enough for Messi, then MLS, is a real serious competitive league.
Históricamente, el New England Revolution ha tenido varios jugadores argentinos. ¿Cómo han contribuido a la identidad o al estilo del equipo, tanto dentro como fuera de la cancha?
Sure. Well, on the pitch, I don't want to be too reductive and talk about, the Argentinian flair and style of play, but certainly there is an individualism to, I think, a lot of that style of play, whether it's Brazil or Argentina, where they're dynamic, they're exciting to watch. They're typically the guys that I've seen in our club are players that don't mind taking on a defender 1v1 and making something happen on their own. So, maybe that's just the specific players we've had, but certainly that is a great selling point for us. So a lot of the players like Tomas Chankalai, like Luca Langoni, they bring a certain flair and passion for the game that is just fun to watch. Now off the pitch, I do think that the personality and the culture, and again, this is very individual. I don't want to apply it to just all Argentinian players. I've only known a few, so I can't speak to all of them, but I think the guys that we've had are, I want to use the word like glue guys in the locker room. I don't know if that expression makes sense of like they bring the team together. They really are. I look at Maxi Urruti on our team, who's from Argentina. He happens to be bilingual, so he's one of those guys that brings the whole locker room. He unites them, the English speakers, the Spanish speakers. And, I feel like that's a personality type I've seen in Tomas. Luca's a little quieter, but he's got a great personality too. Now, the one thing I'll point out that I've loved is the mate. That is all across Major League Soccer now, where you will see players from anywhere in the world. Now, nobody goes anywhere without, their hot water thermos and their mate. So it's one of those things where as more Argentinians have come into the league, from when I started here in 2016 to today, I've seen that be so prevalent now. And it's one of those things where, they came here, they share their culture. I didn't know what it was till I saw players walk, Diego Fagundes is from Uruguay. He used to walk around with it. And I'm like, Diego, what is this? And then we learned. So I feel like it's one of those things that they've come and they've shared with the rest of the team. And it's a great way for us to kind of, it's a great story to tell. Like we'll get our local media and say, hey, come listen to these players talk about what this means to their culture. Why do they carry it everywhere? And it's just a way for maybe our media and our market to get to know them a little better. So, and I'll point to Gustavo Bo. I feel like if I went this whole interview and didn't mention Gustavo, it would be a huge miss on my part because he's going to go down as a great figure in our club's history. And, I'm trying to think everything from like the way he would host teammates at his house and grill in his backyard. And, like an Argentinian around a grill, you're in good hands, right? So it's always just a great energy, a great spirit, great mood on these guys. And, again, I've only known maybe 7 or 8, but it's been pretty universally positive experience.
Okay. ¿Crees que tener jugadores argentinos en el equipo genera un mayor vínculo con la audiencia?
Yes, absolutely. I think that we, knowing that there's such a diverse population in Boston, having these players can really capture the attention of different pockets of the population that maybe we just weren't doing a good enough job of reaching before. And I think that, an Argentinian person living in Boston is probably still following Boca Juniors, River Plate, whatever it is, their clubs from their home country, and we want them to also follow MLS. So if it's a way for them to be exposed to the revolution and say, well, let me give it a shot, let me see what MLS is all about, then yes, we welcome that in. I think the prevalence of Spanish-speaking players in our league has changed how we approach communications as a whole. When I started here, we did not have a fluent Spanish speaker in the communications department. I can tell you we will never again not have one. We always will have somebody on our staff who is fluent in Spanish because we found that without that, we were doing those players a disservice because they were such interesting people. But myself as an American English speaker, I was not doing a good enough job of getting to know them. And so that's really where we as a club and as a staff have tried to get better of finding people that can have personal relationships with these guys. First of all, make them feel at home, help them acclimate to living in Boston, because that's going to help them be happier on the field. But then also get to know their stories, their likes, their dislikes, their families, and help relate that to the media and the fans. So somebody on my staff like Harold Rivera, hugely influential in that. I might, if somebody doesn't speak English, I might be limited to just hello, goodbyes, how are you, how's your family, whereas he's really getting to know them on a deep personal level. I'd say with the media locally, the fact is that there's much less Spanish-specific media, I think. So sometimes we have to make sure we're not neglecting that market of making sure we have a great relationship with El Mundo, with El Planeta, with Telemundo, of course. I mean, we do a ton of work with Telemundo here in the market. So it's just making the most of those relationships, and it's kind of a small slice of the pie in terms of all of the media in Boston that we're going after. But it's such an important piece, and we know that that market loves soccer, so we need to bring them into the family. So one thing we did this year, which is probably long overdue, is I actually started a new Spanish radio partnership with Mas Latino on 99.9 FM. So it's something where we just said, for years, we have a Spanish television now on Apple TV. So you can watch all of our games in Spanish, but we wanted to get just more eyes on our product. So now we have all of our at least for now it's just our home matches, but they're also on the radio now in Spanish. And so again, it's not the whole piece of the puzzle for us, but it's so important that we are putting time into reaching that market. It's been a learning experience for me. I'm not a native Spanish speaker, so I don't consume that media. So it takes research, time, and expertise. I have to go find people that know it and ask them. We have Spanish media in our press box every game. I have to ask them, what do you listen to? What do you read? Who do we need to know in this market to make these relationships? So if you come to a Revolution match and you go into our press box, you'll see maybe half of the media there are from your mainstream English language outlets like the Boston Globe, the Boston Herald, Mass Live. But then the other half are El Planeta, El Mundo, Spanish radio. And so, it's absolutely something that we prioritize and we can't neglect because we need all the fans we can get.
¿Cómo abordan las estrategias de comunicación para las audiencias considerando las diferencias culturales entre ellas?
Yeah, I think authentic translation is key. It sounds simple, but in this world of people using AI tools and Google Translate, we can never do that. Everything has to go through a native speaker, somebody that has some touch point with the culture, or else I can't just write a press release in English and translate it to Spanish and assume it's good. I think we know better, right? So I have to go to whether it's Harold on my staff who is fluent and can help me with things like that, or I think multiple departments have that. Our marketing team has a multicultural engagement specialist, Giuliani Mahoney. She is Brazilian. She also speaks some Spanish, so especially related to the Brazilian population, she's hugely influential. But yes, I think our marketing, I don't know how much I see. We have billboards all over town. I don't know how many I've seen in Spanish, if any. Our marketing team has a bunch of newsletters. Do they have a Spanish language only newsletter? I actually don't think so. And that seems like a miss, right? But if they were to start that, they would need to staff accordingly. They can't just start it overnight.
Yeah.
And again, run it through a translator. You need somebody who, whether it's from Boston Spanish-speaking community or from abroad, that can come and translate that for us and build those relationships. That's hugely important. And a lot of it comes down to relationships. It's picking up the phone, going to a community event, meeting the people and forging those relationships. And I think that authenticity is key. We don't want to just market to these communities to make a profit. We want to market to these communities to build a connection.
Yeah, and create a community.
And and let them know that our community is open to all fans, and that we know they love soccer. We want to show them that we love soccer too, and we have a great product right here. So, I feel like authenticity is the key word with that. You have to do it with the right intentions, not just to make a buck. And if you're doing that thoughtfully and going, I think I've learned through the work I've done recently with Mas Latino, one of the reasons I wanted to form this partnership with them is not just because they have a radio station, of course, but because their CEO is on multiple community philanthropic boards throughout Greater Boston, working in these communities. I'm like, well, that seems like somebody we need to get to know. You have the connections in these communities, so let's work with you and see if you can help make the right introductions for us. And that's going to help everyone.
Yeah.
¿Consideras que la MLS funciona más como una liga competitiva en sí misma o como una plataforma para que los jugadores salten al fútbol europeo?
I guess the best way for me to put that, I mean, it's a little bit of both, but the way you kind of alluded to this, there's only one league in the world that's not a selling league, and that's the English Premier League. Everywhere else is a selling league where you develop talent, and if that talent is good enough, they're going to be sought after by a bigger club in a bigger market. So do I think MLS only exists to move players onto Europe? Absolutely not. I think that there's a variety of types of profiles that make up our league. There are the young players that come here to prove themselves and move on. There are the young players that come here and have a long and successful career right here in MLS. There are the players like Messi and in the past maybe a Beckham that come late in their career. Maybe they bring the star power, they can make a lot of money, they help us out quite a bit with their brand. But also you have players that are maybe in the middle of their career that do come here in their prime. We are becoming more and more a league of choice for players that are 26, 27, 28, not to run out the clock on their career, but to have the best years of their career here. I think two great examples are Gustavo Bo and Carles Gil. Carles is our captain. He came from Spain, where he was already in the Premier League. Maybe he didn't have the success he hoped, but he came here and he was immediately the best player in Major League Soccer, and has been for 7 years. And he's continued to re-sign and re-sign and re-sign. He's not trying to get back to Europe. Yeah. He's happy being the best player here in our league and represent our club. And you have all those types of players. So it really it's a tapestry of different types of profiles. I would say that it's not a bad thing for us to be a trampoline to Europe. Now, our local fans can get frustrated because we have very good players and they grow attached to these players and then they move on. So that's not what I myself as a marketing PR person want. I want players that I can build a story around and keep here for a long time. But I also have to realize that those are success stories as well, and they show where we are in the world. MLS, I believe, is now firmly a top 10 league in global football. We want that to become, be 6 or 7, right behind the big 5 of Europe, and we're getting there. And to get there, you have to have talent. And how do you have talent? Is you show them that this is where they can go to make that leap. A Luca Langoni would not be in MLS if he didn't think he could get to Europe afterwards. But while he's here, he's going to excite a lot of people, hopefully win a lot of games, score a lot of goals, and be part of our history. So it has been a struggle from a communication standpoint of the turnover. Some of our best players are not here for very long, and that can frustrate the local fans, but it's part of my job to educate them on why these are still positive signs of our league's health and our growth. One thing related to the World Cup coming back that I've been selling very hard is if you look at 2022 in Qatar, MLS sent 35-ish players to World Cup rosters. That was 6th most of any league in the world. The only leagues that were better were the big 5 in Europe. So when you talk about where is the best talent in the world playing their soccer, it's those big 5, and then it's MLS right here. And so that says something about our league. Yeah.